There is a part of you that you rarely show to the world, a hidden side that you might prefer to ignore, deny, or even fear. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and he believed it was one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. The shadow is made of everything you've pushed away, your suppressed emotions, your unwanted traits, your unspoken fears, and even your hidden strengths. It's the part of yourself you've been told is unacceptable, the impulses you bury, and the feelings you hide because they don't fit the image you want to present. And yet, this shadow, though hidden, doesn't disappear. It lives within you, silently influencing your thoughts, your choices, your relationships, and the story you tell yourself about who you are. Imagine the shadow as a box you've been carrying since childhood. Every time someone told you, don't be too loud, don't cry, don't be selfish, or don't show anger, you took a part of yourself and locked it inside that box. Over the years, the box grew heavier, filled with pieces of your personality, fragments of your emotions, and aspects of your humanity that you decided were too dangerous to reveal. But here's the paradox. The more you try to deny the shadow, the more control it has over you. Unacknowledged, it leaks into your life in unexpected ways, an outburst of anger, a sudden insecurity, a hidden jealousy, a repeated pattern you can't seem to escape. What you repress doesn't vanish. It waits patiently until it finds a way to express itself. Jung's insight was revolutionary because he showed that the shadow is not just negative or destructive. It is also full of potential. Within your shadow lives not only your fears and wounds, but also your untapped creativity, your courage, your passion, and your power. What you hide often includes what you secretly long to embrace. By meeting your shadow, by bringing light to it, you don't become darker, you become more whole. You stop fighting with yourself and begin to reclaim the parts of you that you abandoned long ago. Healing is not about erasing your shadow, but about integrating it, making peace with it, and learning to walk through life as a more complete human being. Think of it like this. If your personality is a house, the shadow is the basement you've locked and avoided for years. At first, it feels safer to keep the door shut, but over time, the basement fills with dust, old memories, and forgotten treasures. Sometimes you even hear strange noises from below, echoes of what's been left unattended. The courage to open that door and explore what's inside is the essence of shadow work. Yes, you might find cobwebs and things that scare you, but you will also find precious parts of yourself that were waiting for your acknowledgement. And when you integrate those parts, your house becomes whole again, no longer divided between the light you show and the darkness you fear. Many people resist this work because it feels uncomfortable. Facing your shadow means admitting that you are not only the polished image you present to the world, it means confronting anger, envy, guilt, and shame, the emotions you've been taught to suppress. Yet, paradoxically, the very act of acknowledging them takes away their destructive power. The shadow only controls you when it remains unconscious. Once you bring it into awareness, you have a choice. Instead of being driven by hidden forces, you begin to act with clarity, responsibility, and authenticity. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This truth is at the heart of shadow work. So much of what we call destiny, our repeated failures, our recurring conflicts, our patterns in love, work, and self-worth, are simply the shadow acting out, demanding to be seen. When you recognize this, life changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of fate and start to understand that you have the power to change the script by facing what you've hidden. This is not easy work. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and patience. It's much simpler to project your shadow onto others, to blame them for the qualities you refuse to see in yourself. Have you ever noticed how the traits that irritate you most in others often reflect something unresolved within you? That's projection, one of the shadow's favorite tricks. The people who annoy you, the ones who trigger strong reactions, are often mirrors, showing you pieces of your own shadow. This is why relationships, whether with family, friends, or partners, are some of the richest arenas for shadow work. They reveal the parts of yourself that you'd rather keep hidden, but that desperately need your attention. To begin working with the shadow is to reclaim your power. Every time you acknowledge a hidden emotion, every time you admit a difficult truth, you take back a part of yourself that was lost. This doesn't make you weaker, it makes you more alive. You begin to see yourself not as fragmented, but as whole, capable of holding both light and darkness within you. And that wholeness brings an incredible sense of freedom. You no longer waste energy pretending, hiding, or fighting with yourself. Instead, you can use that energy to grow, to create, to love more deeply, and to live more authentically. Shadow work is not about perfection. It's not about eliminating all negative emotions or becoming a flawless version of yourself. It's about becoming real, grounded, and fully human. When you embrace your shadow, you become less afraid of life itself, because you know that whatever arises within you, whether joy or pain, you have the strength to meet it. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of all. The courage to live without masks, to meet yourself fully, and to shine with the light of someone who is not afraid of their own darkness. In the next part, we'll explore how the shadow reveals itself in daily life, often in ways you least expect. You'll see how it shows up in your reactions, your relationships, and your choices, and how recognizing these patterns can open the door to deep transformation. The shadow doesn't usually announce itself with a loud voice. Instead, it slips quietly into your daily life, shaping your reactions, influencing your relationships, and guiding your choices without your awareness. You might think you are in control, but in reality, the unacknowledged parts of yourself are often pulling the strings. That is why shadow work is so important, because the places where you feel stuck, confused, or reactive are often the very places where your shadow is speaking the loudest. Think about the moments when you suddenly overreact to something small. A careless comment, a minor mistake, or a harmless opinion. The intensity of your reaction often says more about what's inside you than about the situation itself. This is the shadow at play, pushing old wounds and unhealed memories to the surface. It's like a button that gets pressed, triggering emotions you didn't even realize were buried so deep. If you ignore it, the cycle repeats. But if you pause and ask, why did this affect me so strongly? You open a door to self-discovery. The shadow is not trying to hurt you, it is trying to be seen. In relationships, the shadow often shows itself through projection. You might find yourself criticizing others for being selfish, lazy, or arrogant, not realizing that these are qualities you deny in yourself. Jung explained that projection is one of the most common ways the unconscious reveals itself. What bothers you in others often reflects something unresolved within. For example, if you are deeply irritated by someone's arrogance, it may be because you have disowned your own desire to be confident and assertive. Or if you resent someone's selfishness, it may be because you have suppressed your own needs for so long that seeing them in others feels unbearable. Recognizing projection is not about blaming yourself, but about realizing that what you see in others can be a mirror to your own inner landscape. The shadow also appears in the habits that keep you stuck. Procrastination, self-sabotage, perfectionism. These are not just bad habits, they are signals from the shadow. They are ways the unconscious communicates its resistance, fear, or unmet needs. If you've ever set a goal and found yourself sabotaging it at the last minute, chances are your shadow was involved. Deep down, there may be a fear of success, a belief that you don't deserve better, or a hidden loyalty to old patterns. Until you bring these unconscious dynamics into the light, they continue to block your progress, no matter how hard you try. Another way the shadow reveals itself is through the roles you play. You might always try to be the helper, the strong one, or the peacemaker, because those roles feel safe and acceptable. But behind them, parts of you remain unexpressed. The anger you suppress, the vulnerability you hide, the desires you don't admit. The more you cling to a role, the more your shadow grows, because everything that doesn't fit that role gets pushed into the darkness. Over time, this creates a gap between who you really are and who you pretend to be. That gap is exhausting, and it often shows up as stress, anxiety, or a sense of emptiness, even when everything looks fine on the outside. You can also notice the shadow in your dreams. Jung believed dreams were a direct line to the unconscious, often bringing the shadow to life in symbolic form. Perhaps you dream of being chased, trapped, or confronted by a stranger. These images are not random. They are your shadow trying to communicate. If you pay attention, your dreams can become powerful guides, helping you see what you have ignored during the day. By reflecting on your dreams, writing them down, and exploring their symbols, you can begin to piece together the hidden messages of your psyche. Everyday language also reveals the shadow. Listen to the phrases you say without thinking. I could never do that. That's just not me. I don't care about that. Often these are clues to parts of yourself you've pushed away. The things you claim to hate or deny sometimes point to the very qualities you secretly long to embrace. For example, saying, "I'm not creative," may actually reveal a buried desire to express yourself, one that you've suppressed because of fear or past criticism. The workplace is another arena where the shadow plays out. Maybe you find yourself clashing with authority figures, resenting colleagues, or struggling to assert yourself. These conflicts are rarely just about the external situation. They often point to unresolved dynamics within you, authority issues rooted in childhood, fear of rejection, or discomfort with your own power. By noticing these patterns, you can turn even professional challenges into opportunities for self-awareness and growth. What all of this reveals is that the shadow is not some abstract concept. It is alive and active in the smallest details of your daily life. It shows up in your triggers, your habits, your roles, your dreams, and your conflicts. The question is not whether you have a shadow, it's whether you are willing to see it. When you begin to notice the subtle ways your shadow influences you, you take the first step toward reclaiming your power. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. In the next part, we'll explore how to actively engage with the shadow through simple but powerful practices, like journaling, self-reflection, mindfulness, and conscious dialogue. These techniques will give you the tools to turn your awareness into real integration, so that your shadow becomes a source of strength instead of a hidden enemy. Awareness of the shadow is only the beginning. Once you start noticing its presence in your reactions, your relationships, and your habits, the next step is learning how to work with it consciously. This process, known as shadow work, is not about fighting or eliminating the shadow, but about creating a dialogue with it, listening to what it has to teach you, and gradually integrating its lessons into your life. The practices may seem simple on the surface, but their impact can be profound, opening doors to healing, creativity, and a deeper sense of authenticity. One of the most accessible techniques is journaling. Writing offers a safe space to bring hidden thoughts and emotions into the light. When you sit down with a pen and paper and allow yourself to write freely, without censorship, you invite your unconscious to speak. At first, what comes out may surprise you. Anger you didn't realize you were holding, fears you didn't want to admit, desires you've kept in the shadows. The key is not to judge or edit, but to let the words flow. Over time, journaling becomes a mirror, showing you patterns and truths you might otherwise overlook. You may notice recurring themes or emotions, pointing directly to the areas of your shadow that need attention. Another powerful practice is mindful self-reflection. This means paying attention to your triggers and reactions in real time. When you feel yourself becoming defensive, jealous, or overly critical, pause and ask, what is this really about? What part of me is being reflected here? Instead of blaming others or trying to suppress the feeling, you turn inward, treating the emotion as a messenger. This shift in perspective is transformative. Suddenly, your reactions are not enemies to be suppressed, but guides pointing you toward hidden parts of yourself. With practice, you begin to welcome these moments of discomfort as opportunities to learn and grow. Meditation is also a valuable tool for shadow work. Contrary to the belief that meditation is only about silencing the mind, certain forms of meditation invite you to observe your thoughts and emotions with compassion. By sitting in stillness and watching what arises without judgment, you create space for the shadow to surface safely. You may notice anger, sadness, or fear emerging. Instead of pushing them away, you acknowledge them gently, reminding yourself that these emotions are part of being human. Over time, this practice reduces the power of the shadow because you no longer treat it as something dangerous or unacceptable. Instead, you integrate it into your awareness with compassion. Some people also find value in dialogue exercises, where you literally give voice to your shadow. This can be done in writing or even out loud, by imagining a conversation between your conscious self and the hidden part of you. For example, you might write a question like, "What are you trying to show me?" and then allow your shadow to respond. This process may feel strange at first, but it can reveal surprising insights. Often, the shadow is not trying to harm you. It is trying to protect you, to shield you from pain, rejection, or failure. By listening to its voice, you can begin to understand its motives and integrate its wisdom without letting it control your life. Creativity is another pathway to integration. Art, music, dance, and other forms of expression can help you give shape to the parts of yourself that words cannot capture. Jung himself encouraged creative practices like painting or active imagination as ways to interact with the unconscious. When you create without worrying about perfection or judgment, you allow the shadow to express itself in symbolic form. Sometimes what emerges is dark or unsettling, but even those expressions carry meaning. They are reminders that your shadow is alive and waiting for acknowledgement. By giving it form, you take away its power to remain hidden. Working with the shadow also involves facing your fears directly. This doesn't mean recklessly plunging into danger, but gradually confronting the emotions and situations you've avoided. If you fear rejection, for example, you might practice vulnerability in small ways, sharing your opinion in a group, asking for help, or expressing your needs to someone you trust. Each step builds resilience and teaches your shadow that you no longer need to hide. Over time, the fear loses its grip, replaced by a sense of empowerment. It is important to approach shadow work with patience and compassion. This is not a process you rush or complete in a single effort. The shadow has been built over years, sometimes decades, and it reveals itself in layers. Some days you may feel a breakthrough, as if a heavy burden has lifted. Other days you may feel overwhelmed or discouraged. Both are natural. Shadow work is less about achieving a final destination and more about cultivating an ongoing relationship with yourself. A relationship that grows deeper and more honest with time. Support from others can also be invaluable. Whether through therapy, trusted friendships, or spiritual communities, sharing your journey with people who understand can provide perspective and encouragement. Sometimes another person can see what you cannot, offering gentle feedback that helps you recognize blind spots. Jung himself emphasized the importance of guidance in this work, acknowledging that the shadow can be challenging to face alone. Finding safe, supportive connections can make the process more sustainable and less isolating. Ultimately, the practices of shadow work are about integration. Each time you write in your journal, reflect on a reaction, meditate with compassion, or express yourself creatively, you weave another thread between your conscious self and your hidden self. Slowly, the wall between light and darkness begins to dissolve. You realize that you are not defined by the traits you hide, nor are you limited by the roles you play. You are a complex, multidimensional being capable of holding contradictions, and that complexity is your strength. As you continue this journey, you may begin to notice a subtle but powerful shift. The parts of yourself you once feared become sources of resilience. The emotions you once avoided become teachers. The patterns you once repeated unconsciously lose their power. This is the gift of shadow work, the transformation of hidden darkness into conscious light, not by denying it, but by embracing it. In the next part, we will explore what integration truly means, how living with your shadow acknowledged and accepted changes the way you move through the world, deepens your relationships, and allows you to experience life with greater freedom, authenticity, and wholeness. Integration is the heart of shadow work. Awareness shows you the shadow, practices help you engage with it, but integration is where the true transformation happens. To integrate your shadow means to stop living in opposition to yourself. It means recognizing that every part of you, the light and the dark, the strengths and the flaws, the beauty and the pain, belongs to the same whole. You no longer push away what feels inconvenient or uncomfortable. Instead, you embrace it as part of your humanity, and in doing so, you step into a more authentic, grounded, and liberated version of yourself. When you begin to live with your shadow acknowledged, something extraordinary happens. The energy you once spent hiding, pretending, or fighting yourself becomes available for growth. Imagine all the times you've suppressed anger, denied sadness, or concealed vulnerability. Each act of repression costs energy. Integration releases that energy, giving you new strength to create, to love, to pursue your purpose. This is why people often describe shadow work as life-changing, not because it makes life easier, but because it makes you more complete. You become someone who is not afraid to face the truth of who you are, and that courage is magnetic. It draws people to you, deepens your relationships, and builds trust, because authenticity is a rare and powerful force. Integration also brings compassion. When you recognize your own darkness, you stop judging others so harshly. You see that everyone carries wounds, fears, and hidden parts of themselves. Instead of condemning, you empathize. Instead of projecting, you reflect. This shift can transform not only your inner world, but also your relationships. Conflicts lose their edge because you no longer need to defend a fragile image of perfection. You can admit mistakes, acknowledge feelings, and hold space for others to do the same. In this way, shadow work is not only personal, it is collective. By integrating your own shadow, you contribute to a more compassionate and conscious world. Another gift of integration is resilience. Life will always bring challenges, uncertainties, and pain. But when you've made peace with your inner darkness, you are no longer as easily shaken by outer circumstances. You carry within you a deeper sense of stability because you know that whatever arises, joy or sorrow, success or failure, you can meet it with honesty and strength. You no longer fear being broken by what you feel because you have already faced the depths within yourself. That inner solidity allows you to move through life with more courage and less fear. It is important to remember that integration is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing journey, a continuous process of meeting yourself with openness and acceptance. There will always be new layers to discover, new aspects of the shadow to integrate, and new opportunities to grow. This is not a sign of failure. It is the path of being human. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to welcome all of yourself, without judgment. And each step you take brings you closer to the freedom of living authentically. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming your true self, requires the integration of the shadow. Without it, you remain fragmented, caught in cycles of projection, self-sabotage, and unconscious repetition. With it, you step into a deeper alignment with your purpose, your potential, and your soul. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming fully who you already are, without masks or denial. That is the essence of healing. Not erasing parts of yourself, but weaving them together into a harmonious whole. And this brings us to the next step on our journey. Once you begin to integrate your shadow, you create space for healing words and affirmations to truly take root. When you stop fighting yourself, your mind and heart become fertile ground for transformation. This is where the power of affirmations, like those taught by Louise Hay, becomes more than just positive thinking. It becomes a tool for real change. Because affirmations are not about covering up wounds with pretty words. They are about planting seeds of love, self-acceptance, and healing in soil that has been cleared of denial and resistance. In our next video, we will explore Louise Hay's powerful method of affirmations and how they can help you nurture the parts of yourself you've reclaimed through shadow work. You'll see how words, when spoken with intention and belief, can heal old wounds, reduce anxiety, and awaken a profound sense of self-love. Shadow work opens the door, and affirmations help you walk through it with grace. Together, they create a path of transformation that unites the depth of psychology with the light of healing.